All right, what kind of foods do you want to have on hand when it's time for your baby to start solid foods? I want you to know there is absolutely no perfect sequence of foods that you have to start with or the absolute right first food for baby-led weaning. As a dietitian specializing in baby-led weaning, I'm a huge advocate for your baby being able to eat most of the foods that you and the rest of your family do with a few modifications at first. If we haven't met yet, hello, my name is Katie Ferraro. I'm a baby-led weaning dietitian, college nutrition professor, and mom of 7. And in today's video, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into my baby-led weaning pantry, so you can get some ideas of the foods that you probably already have on hand that your baby can safely eat. Let's go check it out. All right, what about seasoning your baby's food? Here's the deal. Babies do not need to eat bland food. I often remind parents, babies in Ethiopia eat Ethiopian foods. Babies in Nepal eat Nepalese food. Whatever you season your foods with, your baby can have most of those seasonings with some reasoning. Now, here's the background behind that. Your baby has already been exposed to a wide variety of flavors, right? When you were pregnant, it was through your amniotic fluid. When you were breastfeeding, there was flavor transfer through your breast milk. So again, your baby does not have to eat bland foods. The caveat there that we don't add any added salt or any added sugar to baby's foods when we're cooking for baby-led weaning. You also want to avoid like really super spicy foods, that seasonings that might be injurious to your baby. But other than that, don't be shy about seasoning your baby's foods. I like to use seasonings that I just have on hand. I'm going to go through a couple of these. Cinnamon is a wonderful one if you're doing any of the whole grains for my 100 first foods list. If you're making them into a porridge, you can always add cinnamon. Obviously, it goes great with oatmeal. Goes great on some of the root vegetables too. I love to try it on parsnips or on carrots if I'm roasting those for baby-led weaning. Okay, next up, paprika. I love to make a lot of sauces for the foods that I offer babies. Sauces make the foods easier and safer for the baby to swallow. So you can do paprika, you can do coriander. I've got some sweet curry here. Again, don't be shy about adding seasoning to your baby's foods. I also buy these salt-free blends. This happens to be from a company called Spice House. I love their line of salt-free blends. It works really great for adding different flavors, especially to the vegetables that you're making for your baby, but really any of the other foods from the 100 first foods list. We can pair them quite easily with some of these low sodium seasonings. So for Spice House, if you want to check out some of their salt-free seasoning blends in their salt-free line, I do have an affiliate discount code and I'll link that below where you're watching this video. So you can really make any of the seasonings or the spices in your house work. Cumin is one that I use a lot, especially in the protein dishes and the meats that I'm making for babies, as well as for those vegetables. Again, don't be shy about seasoning food for your baby. Just steer clear of salt and sugar and super spicy foods. When it comes to the canned goods section of your pantry, canned goods definitely can work for baby-led weaning. I don't know why, but sometimes parents are like, oh, I heard I can't feed my baby canned goods. Why not? There's a lot of great options in foods that you probably already have in your pantry. So when it comes to canned goods, I actually have a whole feeding guide for you that is my baby-led weaning pantry planner guide, and I have it divided by spices and seasoning. And then in canned goods, there's canned fruits that work, there's canned vegetables that work. There's even, I just found this one I was super stoked on. This is canned cooked sweet potatoes that don't have any added sugar or any added salt. And that's the key. Just make sure you're reading your labels, looking at the line that talks about the added sugars. You want to see 0 grams of added sugar. You want to see 0 milligrams of sodium if at all possible. Now, you're not always going to find 0 milligrams of sodium, right? Because sodium is a preservative and that's what kind of helps the food stay in the cans and stay good for a long period of time. But you can definitely find lower sodium versions of canned foods. Look for no added salt if at all possible. That's going to be as close to 0. My general rule of thumb is I look for less than 100 milligrams of sodium in any of the foods that have a label on them that I'm going to serve to my baby, right? Most of the foods you offer for baby-led weaning are foods that don't come out of a package, but if they do, less than 100 milligrams is a good kind of benchmark. And also you got to keep in mind your baby's not going to eat that whole adult portion size that is posted. So for canned vegetables, I love to find anything, no added salt. If you can't find the lowest sodium version ones out there, remember you can always rinse your canned goods under the faucet. That tends to reduce the sodium by about 30%. There's a lot of great vegetable options, a lot of great legumes, right? So those dried peas and beans, things like garbanzo beans and kidney beans, black beans, we can make those safe for babies to eat. You just want to start with the base of the canned one that doesn't have any added salt. Again, rinse them if you need to. There's also some great canned fruit items out there for baby-led weaning. Some that come to mind are pineapples. I love to do pineapple rings. The rings are packed in their own 100% pineapple juice, so no added sugar. Okay, we don't want any syrup. You don't want the pineapple packed in light syrup or canned syrup. Those are added sugars, and we don't do added sugars for babies. But the type of sugar you find naturally occurring in fruit, like in pineapple, perfectly fine for babies to have. I'll take the rings of pineapple packed in their own juice, cut them in half. They kind of make these little half moons that the baby can then easily pick up and feed themselves. But you can also find pear halves and peach halves packed in water or in their own juice. Again, no syrup. I've also recently been finding whole pitted cherries packed in water, which is great because it's a lot less work than pitting your own cherries, and cherries aren't always available year round. So definitely don't discount the fruit aisle, in the fruit part of the canned food aisle. Just really keeping sure to make sure that there's no added sugar, because we do want to stay away from that for babies. Another great canned food for baby-led weaning is canned pumpkin. Now, you want to be certain that you're not doing canned pie, pumpkin pie filling. Okay, pumpkin pie filling has a lot of added sugar. It looks just like canned pumpkin, but year-round, you can usually find 100% pure canned pumpkin. This is genius for baby-led weaning. It's very, very rich in nutrition. You can add it to lots of other foods that you're serving to your baby, and a great way to offer them the new vegetable pumpkin. Another great fruit that you can find in your pantry is unsweetened applesauce. I remember the other day I was asking my brother-in-law, he was at the store, he said, do you need anything? And I was having a baby come over and I wanted to show him unsweetened applesauce. I said, yeah, get a jar of unsweetened applesauce. He's like, I've been looking at this store forever. I can't find any unsweetened applesauce. It's not always called unsweetened applesauce. Sometimes it's called natural. You got to read your labels. Turn it around. If the ingredients are apples and ascorbic acid, that's just vitamin C that's added to the apples to help prevent browning, that's great. If you see sugars or any added sugars, keep looking. You'll find another variety that looks very, very similar. You'll be surprised. It costs the same. It looks the same. Do a little digging on your label. 0 grams of added sugar, and applesauce is a great food. We use that a lot to mix with other foods that we're making safe for baby-led weaning. Seafood is another category that you might not think, oh my gosh, I have seafoods in my pantry, but there are some great options for canned and tinned seafood that work wonderful for baby-led weaning. So when it comes to introducing allergenic foods to your babies, we have the big 9. Those are the 9 foods that account for about 90% of food allergy, and we want to introduce those early and often. Fish is one of the big 9, and shellfish is one of the big 9. And a lot of times parents are like, I don't make fish and shellfish that often at my house. Don't worry, you can find really good canned options. So I'm going to share 2 with you. The first one are sardines. Don't turn your nose up at sardines. Babies love sardines, and it's a really easy way to offer your baby fish protein. It comes right out of a tin. These particular ones I found, you have to search for a little bit sometimes. The bigger grocery stores will definitely have a better variety, but find one that works and you can offer it, buy it a couple of times. Your baby can try these foods over and over. These are skinless and boneless, which I like, sardines in water, no salt added. Now, one thing I want to add is that fish and shellfish are high mineral foods, and sodium is a mineral. So fish and shellfish will naturally have sodium in them. And if you see it, like this particular sardine, there's no added salt, yet there's still 170 milligrams in one serving. And that's basically almost this whole tin. Of course, your baby's not going to eat the whole tin. But when you read the ingredients are contains sardines, which are fish, and water. So any of the sodium that I see here, it's naturally occurring sodium, and I feel very safe offering this food to my baby. I also found, this was cool, this was new today at the store, Pacific mackerel in its natural oil. So I like fatty fish, those oily fatty fish. The fat makes it so much easier for the baby to swallow because the fat equates to moisture, and moisture makes foods easier for babies to swallow. This canned mackerel, even though I look at the serving size, 2/3 of a cup, again, your baby, as much as they might love mackerel, is probably not going to eat that much. 2/3 of a cup has 322 milligrams of sodium. It's like, oh, normally I wouldn't buy that because I don't like to go above 100 milligrams of sodium. However, when you read the ingredient list, the ingredients are Pacific mackerel and water. So I know that the sodium that's in here is naturally occurring sodium. You can't get rid of it. And I want my baby to have the fish protein. And some of these are lower mercury options, which is also what we're looking for. So they're a great way to safely introduce your baby to fish. So there's another whole section of your pantry. I call it the dry goods. It's just kind of the catch-all for a lot of the other foods. A lot of these tend to come from the starchy foods part of my 100 First Foods list. If you don't have a copy of the 100 First Foods list, I give it away to everybody on my free 1-hour online video training called Baby-Led Weaning for Beginners. I've got 100 foods your baby can safely eat. It's divided into 5 categories. They fit into my 5-step feeding framework that I teach you all about on this training. But the carbohydrate foods can be a little bit harder for some families because because they're like rice, pasta, potatoes. We all get stuck in the rice, pasta, potatoes rut. But I want you guys to realize there's tons of other carbohydrate-containing foods that babies can safely eat. A lot of them are very affordable. It also opens your eyes and kind of expands your palate into trying some new foods. I love when I hear from families that are like, I tried all these wacky whole grains that I'd never even heard of. I love to keep some of these on hand. So here's the dry goods section of my pantry. Starting first with pasta, okay? We'll start easy. Everyone can make pasta. Pasta is a great way to introduce your baby to the potentially allergenic food wheat. I like to use pastas that when they cook up are about the size of your adult pinky finger. So I like to do rotini or cavatappi, penne, rigatoni also works great. Just cook them a little bit past done, like past al dente, so they're nice and soft for your baby to eat. But pasta, you can do whole wheat if you like it and you buy that, but also if you're buying enriched or white pasta, it has iron added back into it, plus some other nutrition. Great way to introduce your baby to wheat. There's a lot of other whole grains out there. Some of my favorites, I've got some kamut, which is on my 100 First Foods list. I think that's one of the hardest ones to feed, so we'll do an easier one. Buckwheat, okay? A lot of these you can make into both a porridge that you can offer from a pre-loaded spoon, or I have a lot of great tips on how to make these into finger foods that babies can eat, and that's inside of that baby-led weaning workshop at babyledweaning.co. Another favorite of mine to have on hand for baby-led weaning is panko breadcrumbs. Okay, regular breadcrumbs, like Italian style or just the regular ones, they're regular bread, which is really high in sodium, ground up, so it makes breadcrumbs that are too high in salt for babies. But panko is awesome because Japanese style breadcrumbs has either no added salt or very small amounts of added salt. And so when you get into making whole grains and you have some of these leftover proteins, you might want to be making fritters for your baby, for baby-led weaning. And we generally do the cooked protein or the cooked vegetable with some panko and an egg, pat it all together, fry it, cut it into strips, babies can eat it. You're going to want to have some panko on hand. Also have a couple of different types of rice on my 100 First Foods list, one of my least favorite foods to clean up, but I can show you how to make rice safely. And then don't forget about oatmeal. Okay, this is a wonderful way to kind of, it serves as a base for some of the other foods that we might mix into oatmeal. I do this one early and often. You can do quick cooking oats. You can do steel cuts, a little bit harder to make safe for baby-led weaning, but you probably have some of these items already in your pantry in the dry goods section. All right, last section of the pantry. Sorry, I could do pantry tour like all day long. Like going through my pantry finding, I gotta make this recipe and that recipe, but just kind of the miscellaneous stuff that you have in your pantry that you might not realize babies can eat. I love unseasoned rice vinegar. So actually do vinegar in a couple of different recipes. There's no added salt in there. There's no sugar. It's a great way to introduce your baby to some new flavors. So take a look at the vinegars you already have on hand, and as long as they don't have any salt in them, unseasoned means unsalted. When we're talking about rice vinegar, just read your labels. No added salt, no sugar. My baby can have this. Another good one to have on hand is some no added salt broth, especially when we're making meats for baby. I'll show you in a lot of my programs and stuff how to make the fattier cuts of meat, like a beef chuck roast or a beef brisket or a pork shoulder or pork butt roast, how we make nice, soft, shreddable strips of meat that babies can eat. It always involves no added salt broth. So I think these are great to have on hand. Yeah, you can make it yourself, but having a carton or two is pretty nice as well. And then another one I want to share, I've been using this a lot lately, is coconut milk. Okay, you want to make sure that it's full fat coconut milk. The light coconut milk is just watered down with water. Babies need that all-important fat when they are still growing and their brain is developing, but also coconut milk is great, especially for babies that might have cow's milk protein allergy. We use this as a substitute, but it's also a nice, thick liquid. It's wonderful for helping your baby learn how to practice drinking out of an open cup as well. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed a little tour around my baby-led weaning pantry. I have this all summarized in a free feeding guide that you guys can download if you want. It's my baby-led weaning pantry planner, and I've got each section divided. So I've got the spices and then the canned goods, fruits, vegetables, legumes. I've got some dry goods, the miscellaneous stuff. Go through it. It's check boxes and see what you have on hand. Might also give you some ideas of some foods to buy if you're heading to the store and getting ready for baby-led weaning. Again, that's linked up below where you're watching this video. I hope you enjoy the free feeding guide, the baby-led weaning pantry planner. Thanks so much for watching this video.